Martin. Thank you so much for coming up from San Diego.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
This is fun.
Just looking at your bio, founder of True Mindsets. I want to hear about it. Sports mindset and performance advisor. Battling mental wellness issues, right? Athletics. California State Athlete of the Year, 1994. Damn. State and national champion surfer, former professional surfer, UCLA collegiate softball player, dirt bike racer, and of course IBJF black belt, multi-time world, national, international, Pan American champion.
Yeah. Everything you've been in then some on your end.
I was one of my daughter's coaches, wrestling coaches. I was like, yeah, she's a black belt. He's like, wow, you never know how somebody looks, what they are, just because you had your dress on, you're walking, with your shoes.
Oh, somebody said that?
Yeah, with the wrestling coach, he's like Russian, It's like, wow, you would never know.
Yeah.
But she's a black belt. Congratulations.
Thank you. So
great to have you again.
Thank you.
How could you tell me about the mindset that is it a foundation that you have?
I have a foundation, but I do mental performance training for top professional athletes on down to high level prospects, people dreaming of being those pros and giving them tools. I think it's really, we're martial artists and athletes. When I look at them, or even a baseball player, I see a martial artist. I see that balance matters, breath matters, getting ourselves in positions where we can be understanding that we're humans and we have feelings, but choosing the thoughts that are going to allow us to compete with what's right in front of ourselves. And as you know, there's a lot of drilling, training, then competing. So the way I look at it is drilling, training, preparation, approach, execution of whatever that sport is. Mm-hmm. The sport requires what it requires, no matter what we want or how we're feeling about it. So learning how to capture feel is something that human beings, we're the only creatures on the planet that can do that.
Capturing feel.
I weaponize athletes with mental performance tools. It's the best way to say it.
Capturing feel. That's like being connected, right? Fully connected, full power in a way, like in another way to say it.
Yes, I think simplifying it, there's feelings, how we're feeling about something. We could be anxious, scared, super excited. All those feelings can get us in our own way in competition, as you're aware. So being able to capture feel, knowing, and you've felt this before, I'm sure, when you've had fights somewhere, you're like, I just know I'm winning. You just know it's not a cocky thing.
Right.
But there's a feel that's speaking to you.
Building awareness, right? Yes. Self-awareness, awareness of everything around you.
We hear it. And there's times where I've been in fights where everybody's like, oh, you're going to get this one. I was like, I don't ever buy hype. I've never been one to be like, oh, yeah, let's do this. I stay almost uber eerie calm. But I was hearing the truth. The truth was, maybe I cut a corner in my preparation. I wasn't sure what it was, but it was truth. Mm-hmm. And if we really look at our lives and we say, okay, if I'm the only creature on the planet that can think greater than how I'm feeling, then what does that mean? Well, truths, facts. Our intuitions don't lie. Truths and facts, yeses and nos. But a lot of times athletes, well, I tried. We use those terms to kind of make us feel better. Oh, you tried, good for you, but you failed. You did it or you didn't do it. You don't try. Because once you bow in on a mat, I'm in, I'm here, I'm doing what I do, and I'm learning, I'm developing. That's okay, give grace to the human. Mm-hmm. Nobody comes in for the first time in jiu-jitsu as a white belt and you see everybody and you're like, every fight, we're nervous. That's our passion. That's our nerves. Yeah. And we either know how to breathe, breath shifts from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic. There's a purpose for that breath. Mm-hmm. So everything we do, when you start getting detailed and slowing down in your mind and realizing the powers of a human being, oh, wait a second, you mean if I'm scared, if I'm freaking out, or if I have a loss in my family that day before, I can still compete? I don't know. Can you?
Yeah.
Would you like to? Because this sport, I'm going to tell you now, doesn't give a fuck to your feelings or what you want. So what are you going to do? Are you going to be all in or not? If you're going to fight, my advice is be all in.
Yeah.
In all the ways you can be, because you don't have to be 100% to win. You just have to give 100 of whatever you are.
Mm-hmm.
And these are tools that we learn. And when I learn that and I know that, then I either apply myself to that or I don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Simple. Nothing's easy, but I can simplify the heck out of things.
I was sharing with you my daughter, competing in wrestling, and we were talking about mindset things actually last night. And I was like, would you be open to me? I have to ask her, right?
Yes.
To get me getting some books and you surrounding yourself with that kind of, info.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, sure,
Yes.
teenager. And that was funny because I'm looking at the books to see if they're good. Mm-hmm. One of them was like a state champion, whatever, techniques, whatever. And it was funny just how the chapter that I opened up on was like about that. Like, people think that you're born with these traits, right? And of course, some people are, of course, we're pre-programmed in a lot of ways, but it's something you have to practice. Just like if you're a wrestler, you double legs and single legs of how you choose to show up and to perform, right?
How you choose to show up. Yeah. Because we can find every excuse in the world.
What you let go in your head, right?
Yes. That's everything. That's the beginning to the next moment to moment. Breath is probably the quickest thing because it's our greatest reflex as a human being. Breath, learning how to use the breaths we're taking. We take 20 to 30,000 breaths a day. The average human does. Mm-hmm. And learning to use those is life-changing because if I'm anxious, a lot of times you get tense or you see athletes not really even getting a breath. They're just kind of throwing it away. Yeah. It's like, this from here up. And shifting to the parasympathetic just takes specific breaths. And for 5 minutes now I can shift over. And when I'm calmer, my body now is in its best position to be loose and to flow. Everybody talks about a flow. Getting to a flow is a result of something. There's always these actions to getting to these places that people speak about. Mm-hmm. And especially like young kids telling somebody, hey, go be confident, go be aggressive. I hear that a lot. But aggressive is a describing word. In the English language, aggressive is an adjective. It's not a verb even. A verb, if we're fighting, I need to be all of a verb. I need to be taking action, even if I'm grabbing a collar or whatever I'm doing. Mm-hmm. I can go after it offensively, which is the action. And you might say, wow, pretty aggressive today you are. Okay, that's how you're describing my offense, my all in, just in the way I grab a collar. And that's me choosing to be meticulous about how I grab the collar, technical. Mm-hmm. And in jiu-jitsu, it's beautiful because technique and leverage beat strength. But everybody focuses on the strength and the aggressive and the confident and go be this and go be that. But when you speak to an athlete that way that doesn't know how to generate those results, you confuse the brain. And they're never all in the way they could be. They're not maximizing.
Yeah, you're talking about the sympathetic, parasympathetic, like the relaxing, recovery, whatever, nervous system, sympathetic, like fight or flight, right, nervous system.
That's the sympathetic, and the parasympathetic is rest and digest.
Right.
And I say, what's rest and digest? But we could be sitting right here and digesting energy in the room. Mm-hmm. And now I can move through that energy a certain way, or I can freeze that fight or flight and just tense up.
Yeah, you're talking about the breathing, right? And like our autonomic, like the without us thinking, or we're breathing, we're doing our organs or whatever they're doing, Mm-hmm. And the only thing we can control consciously is our breath. Out of all those things, right?
It's our greatest reflex as a human being.
So that can change your subconscious thinking. It can change everything, right? From just controlling your breath.
Our subconscious being, self, actually, we have thousands of muscles in our body that resonate with the subconscious. So when we set a specific intention, or we are intentional about what we're doing, whether it's balance, maybe it's sprinting, could be anything. When we're intentional about it, the body hears us and it shows up for us. And it's a different performance when you're intentional and when you understand how to set set yourself up for offense and to be offensive. Even on defense, I can have an offensive style. That just means I'm all in all the ways I can be. Always. In all ways, always.
I like that. I like that. All in.
That's offense.
Offense. You know, the
Think
best.
about it. All in all the ways, in all the ways you can be. Always. And I can be offensive with my kindness, with my compassion. People are like, you're offensive? Yes, I am. I'm very offensive. In every room I walk into, I'm present, I'm paying attention, I'm seeing, I'm offensive with my compassion. I'm offensive with my presence. And if you're offended, I don't give a fuck.
We were joking before.
Yes.
About all the things.
But it's the truth. I live in truths and facts, yes or no.
Did you grow up in San Diego?
No, I did not.
Where are you from?
I grew up on the island of Kauai and also in Dana Point. I had the best of both worlds
Mark
with
Bradford told me that.
my crazy parents who were probably shouldn't have had kids. And that's okay.
So you grew up surfing?
Yes. I started surfing when I was 7. I surfed my first contest when I was 7.5. Pretty scared. Yeah, I was scared.
And so you went back and forth to you said Dana Point?
Yes. And also on Kauai. Kauai was great. It's like growing up in, the trees and the streams and the ocean is where I found my confidence. There is no tapping out. You will get tapped out.
Tapping out is getting taken out, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It's the level playing field.
Yeah.
It's the ocean.
Mother Nature.
Yeah. Mother Nature.
How did you start softball and that journey?
I played baseball. I played baseball growing up. I played Little League until I got to high school, college. And I didn't play college ball till 3 years after I graduated. I decided, I think I'm going to go back and play. Yeah, it was an interesting journey going to college to getting to the softball team at UCLA. But I played baseball. I was the only little girl in a little league of 400 boys. I had the best coaches in baseball. And then high school is where I was going back and forth from Kauai to Dana Point.
Okay.
In high school, I was on every varsity team I ever tried out for, which is the year I graduated. I got Female Athlete of the Year in the state of California. I didn't even know that was a thing. I was homeless some of my high school years. I was living on my own. I was living in a bathroom.
Wow.
And I learned self-defense because I was keeping sweaters over my head, trying not to get raped, going in to sleep in a park with homeless people around. So I had to defend myself. And so I started to learn to fight. I went out into Laguna Beach and I walked into a karate class and I won state championships in karate that year, thinking karate was going to save me. Chris Brennan was one of the first Americans to bring jiu-jitsu back. And he called me one day and said, hey, do you want to try? I want you to come in and try this martial art. It's called Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Have you ever heard of it? It's like, no. And I was just getting to
Chris Brennan was in Orange County, right, back in the day? Now he's in Texas, right?
Yes. He was in Mission Viejo. And I drove from UCLA. And I remember thinking, I don't like that my own clothes can choke me. This is messed up. I don't like it. People sitting on my face. And I was like, what is going on? But I was loving it. I was like, any martial art like that, I've always been a martial artist as long as I can remember, since I'm a little girl.
Damn, CIF, that's a lot of kids, a lot of girls.
Yeah.
How did they choose? How did they choose like athlete of the year? It's a crazy big deal.
I didn't know. I played, I graduated with 12 varsity letters. So I played every sport.
What sports did you do? Track and field?
I did track. I had 1 year of boys baseball. I was on the basketball team. I didn't really have a choice on Kauai. This walked into my class. He said, hey, here's a uniform. We need you to come play. I was like, I don't really want to. And I did. I went and played. I surfed on the surf team. Softball. Basketball. I would just go do the meets. I didn't always have the time because I was in other sports to train. So they'd be like, we have a meet. Would you mind running the mile or the 800? I'm like, okay. And I hunted down kids. I mean, that's really the best way to put it. I had so much I was hiding. Being homeless and a teenager, you want to fit in. You want to have the clothes. I had nothing.
How did you become homeless in high school?
My mom chose drugs. And my dad violated the father-daughter relationship. And I couldn't live like that.
So you like ran away?
Yeah, I was on the streets. I
And
was
then
in school.
You were still, you kept going to school during
Yes.
all that. Wow.
I would just go sleep at night in a bathroom down at the campground, and then I would go to school, and nobody knew. I'd put on
Wow.
a face and go to school. I'd surfed on the surf team super early in the morning. I had a job. I would go do surf report. So I'd answer the payphones, and I would tell them it was windy and the waves were not good so that we could surf down there and not have a million people in the
Wow.
water.
It's a different level of toughness.
And at lunch, I was a fit model for Roxy when they first came out their swimsuit. So I was modeling at lunch. And then in the evening, I would work as a valet parking cars. I worked in a restaurant doing bussing tables.
Wow.
I did anything I could to get by.
Wow.
And then the school found out because they were like, where does she live?
Mm-hmm.
You know, they were like, she should be here, she should be here. The school, because of surfing, and the two schools were rivals. And they kind of put my secret in like kind of, they were pressing me, and they're like, you can't come to school if you don't have parent supervision. And I was like, so you're gonna kick me out of school when most people would be not even going to school. And I was overlooked. You know, I had the highest batting average in the state of California, and I was overlooked. I didn't know to get a scholarship. I didn't know how to do that. I had schools, all the recruiting letters from every school, and I thought you had to pay to go be recruited. I would throw them in the trash. And I kept the UCLA stationery. And I ended up at UCLA years and years later.
Why did you choose, or why did you keep the UCLA stationery?
You know, it was on a little bare face, and I remember I had one little clear box. I still have that box of belongings. And I don't know. I saw it, and I just put it in the box, and I didn't even know anything about the UCLA softball team. I didn't even know who they were. And I was doing a TV show. I booked a TV show right when I graduated, extreme sports show. So it might be like, oh, hey, I'm Danielle. I'm here with Alberto. We're at Legacy MMA. Alberto, show me some moves. And it would be BMX or extreme sports athletes I was covering. And one of the times Reebok called up, they said, hey, we have a combine at UCLA. Could you bring your host up? I'd never been on a college campus like that in my life. So I go up there, and my camera guy, the first day we covered football. Then the next, he said, Reebok called back. They would like you to come back to do the women's stuff. And I remember feeling like, no, it hurt. I don't know why it hurt. It hurt. I said, I don't really want to. He said, well, you did a great job. He goes, I go, what are we covering? He goes, we're going to cover volleyball, basketball, soccer, and softball. I said, well, I'm not doing the softball. He's all, why? I don't want to. And I just wouldn't say. He goes, okay, well, so we're going up on the Wednesday. He would drive me every time. So I was living in Laguna Niguel at the time. I come back from Hawaii to shoot the show. And we get up there, and I spoke to the girls. And I remember just looking at these girls thinking, my God, they didn't have this combine when I was in school. I was just looking at them, and they're looking at a poster of me surfing, and I'm signing posters for them. And I felt like so sad. I'm like, wow. I said, you know, if you think everything's great, you have a 3.5 or you're the best athlete, jump. Ask questions. I said the things I wish I'd done. I just didn't know. We don't know what we don't know. And it was time to go out to the softball. And I was talking to the coaches at the volleyball. I was like, so what are you looking for? They're like, well, these are the best recruits in the country. And they come and we get to see them. And I was like, wow. And they're all female. And I was just so like proud of them. They're looking at me like I'm bigger than life. And I'm thinking, I would train places with you in a heartbeat. I was on the cover of magazines. I was the first female on the cover of Surfing. I mean, they're looking up to me. And I am not wanting to be there. I didn't know why. He goes, let's go. We got to talk to the softball coach. I said, no. He goes, why? I said, I don't have my stuff. And my TV show is interactive, so I would go do stuff. He goes, I have your stuff. He grabbed out of my garage, my cleats, my glove, everything. I was mad. And I go out there and I see who's now the head coach, Kelly Perez. She was then Kelly in a way. She was assistant coach. And you wanted the crazy thing, Alberto. I went back and looked at my stationery. She wrote it to me. So here I am. I'm like, hey, so coach, in a way, okay, so what are we looking for? She goes, well, we look at their speed. We look at this. We look at that. So I have to be interactive. So I said, well, I'm going to head out to the outfield. She goes, okay. So they hit me some balls, and then I run the bases. And as I'm about to leave.
So you're doing your show at UCLA.
Yes.
And they're like, hey.
Yes. She calls me and she goes, excuse me, I was about to leave. I said, well, it's really nice meeting you. have a good day. She goes, time out. Excuse me. Who are you? How old are you? She goes, do you have eligibility?
How old are you at the time?
I was like 20, maybe going on 21.
Oh, wow.
And I had my own show, yeah. And I was traveling the world, surfing, modeling, and I had the dream job.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, yeah, I do. I had 1 year I walked on at UH in Hawaii. And the coach was a scumbag. So I left. And she said, what? She goes, you have eligibility? I said, yeah. And my camera guy goes, why? She goes, because she just ran faster than our recruits. And like, you clearly have played before. I was just like BBs from center field to the home plate. And then I would run in and, okay, bye. And she's like, no. She said, would you come here? I didn't say a word. I couldn't speak. My camera guy goes, yeah, she would. And I couldn't speak. I don't know what happened. And I walked back to the van and she goes, I'm going to have the head coach call you. She's not really supposed to. And then my camera guy's phone rings on our way home. And I'm like crying in the car. I didn't know what to say. I just felt, I don't know what happened. And then next thing you know, I'm at my little league field and the coach is watching and she goes, she's a huge surfing fan. She goes, I know her. You were. She goes, you played softball? I go, my camera guy's again answering, yes, she does. She played baseball and softball. Mm-hmm. And she goes, well, this is a long shot, but we'd love to have you. And I'm like, okay, what does that even mean? Like, he goes, yeah, let's do it. She's going to do this. And then that was I got into UCLA and I walked right on the team, best team in the nation. I mean, they went to the World Series. It was incredible. Damn. Yeah, it was amazing. It was one of the greatest things I ever did. It meant the world to me to be there every day. I was sitting on the campus like, when you come from that, you don't feel worthy. You don't feel value. You don't realize like the difference you make, the impact that you have. And that's why it's important when you're a parent to just hold that unconditional loving space for your kid, no matter how intense you are as a human. And we bring them in the world. My parents didn't have those tools, I guess. But I felt very small, as athletic as I was, winning everything on the inside.
Was your dad or your mom, were they athletes?
My dad he was burned in a fire severely and couldn't do it anymore and probably carried that around, probably part of his anger. I mean. Mm-hmm. My mom didn't have the tools. My mom's kind, but they shouldn't have been parents. They were teenagers when they had me. So I didn't have security. I didn't ever feel loved and safe and protected, which probably drew out that fighter in me from a very young age. My protective instincts were off a chart, and you
used it to be good at sports and athletics.
I was fierce.
That was your edge.
Yes. But as a human, I felt very small. I didn't know even what confidence felt like. I felt worthless. And then that gets you into other problems because you tolerate shit because you're just like, I'm good at taking it. I was never taught when's enough's enough. I didn't have my dad saying, hey, and not this and not that. And my mom saying, hey, you're a woman. You're allowed to say no, enough's enough. Yeah. So, I was tremendously blessed in so many ways because I've always been knocked down and I get right back up. But it doesn't mean it's okay to be knocked down and allow people to knock you down. So I spent a lot of my time, especially when I got my black belt, even before that.
How did you finish high school? Or how did high school finish for you? I mean, you're like homeless and, they're trying to figure out what was going on.
One of the families of a kid I played baseball with, that kid, it was pouring rain. And he said, you can't stay down there tonight. Come stay at my house. Mm. So I did. I snuck into his room and I was sleeping and his mom walked in and I was freaked out. And she's like, what is she doing here? And they knew who I was. Mm. And the dad said, tell her to come to dinner tonight. And then they said, we have an extra room you can stay in. So I stayed there. And then the school's like, we need so I brought home these papers and I said, would you mind signing these for me? And just saying that I have supervision of some sort. And he goes, yeah, we will. And they actually went through the courts and they kind of adopted me in some ways and took responsibility for me and turned the papers into the school. So I was able to stay and graduate. Yeah. Had some support. We all need support.
Yeah. What high school was it?
Dana Hills.
Dana Hills. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You didn't skip a beat and went right to your show and doing all the things you did.
I was a pro the next day after I graduated, surfing, and went back to Hawaii and was on Oahu. I lived on Oahu for a few years, just surfing and doing photo shoots, Tahiti. I was all over the country.
And so you said you started karate back in the day, back in those days. But how did you get into jiu-jitsu and that world, that line?
Chris Brennan first, and then I was playing softball at UCLA, so I couldn't drive back and forth. And I remember it was crazy because I remember seeing Hicks in school on Wilshire. And I drive by, I'm like, oh, I think that's that jiu-jitsu stuff. And I'm like, I've done that. That's fun. Yeah, it's pretty fun. But, when you're playing a throwing sport, it's not like you're training jiu-jitsu is the best thing for you. And then it was interesting because I went to some other class. Somebody said, oh, come to this class. I think it was a Krav Maga. And the guy goes, you know what you would be really good at? Have you ever heard of Brazilian jiu-jitsu? And he walked me into another class somewhere. I said, no, or yes, I have. He goes, oh, there's this place over here. You should come check it out. And it ended up being, I think it was maybe Higgins, one of his schools in LA, long time ago, or one of the Machados. And I went in there for a couple classes, and then, I was leaving the country a lot for surfing and traveling. So it wasn't something I could just be a part of. But it was always on my radar. And then when I moved to San Diego, I saw the first UFC with Hoist, and I would see Hoist around LA places, and I'd gone into a school and maybe just didn't feel like it was a perfect, not a perfect fit, but a fit for me. And I was, again, on the road a ton. But when I was in San Diego, there was again, and I was training. My brother-in-law was one of the first black belts under Bruno. Do you know Bruno on Kauai, Brazilian? What?
Oh, so your brother had done jiu-jitsu in Hawaii?
My brother-in-law, yeah. He was training out of his garage. So I was training every time. And I was over there a lot. And I was training all the time in the garage. Every class, I didn't miss a class. And we're just drenched in sweat. We would go surf and then train. And I thought, he goes, oh, gosh, you should find a school. There's got to be one in San Diego. I said, I don't know. And then I went, and I was right up the street from a school, which was the Gracie Barra. So I started training twice a day. I remember saying to them, they were like, so how long do you want to sign up? I'm like, well, do you guys have competitions? Is this like something we could compete in?
Right away, you're thinking that.
Oh, yeah. And they said, yeah, we have everything, like world championship. I said, well, are you guys good enough to train me to be a world champion if I ever wanted it? I didn't know. I was just, in my mind, only it was the top.
Yeah.
And they said, they looked at me. I'm sure they were like, yeah, right. And they told me before, like, yeah, you come in, you paid 2 years in advance because I'm all in or I'm not. I said, so you guys are good enough to train me to be the best? Are you guys the best? And they're like, yeah, we're the best. I said, oh, okay. And I didn't know anything about anyone. I go, you guys as good as Hoist Gracie? And that's all I knew. And they said, it's different. And I said, no, are you as good as him? Can I do what he can do to the people he does it to? Because that means in my mind, I'm looking at him, I'm thinking a woman, I could do anything. I'm thinking nobody could ever hurt me again with this. And yeah, I won a world championship in my first 7 months. I trained twice a day. I did not let up.
How was it watching Hoist Gracie at the beginning of the UFC?
How was it watching him? I watched him walk in that first UFC, and everybody's like, oh my God, look at what this guy's wearing. I go, he's wearing a gi. I saw class. I saw tradition. I saw a martial artist, and I saw a fighter. I saw the guy fighting him, and everybody's like, oh, this guy's going to get crushed. I said, my money's on the guy in the gi. And they said, you're crazy. I just knew it was magical. It was amazing. It was, for someone in my position at that time, always the underdog. I saw him and I related to him immediately, and I was in his corner. I was in awe of what he did, and I thought, I'm going to be like that. I'm going to be like Hoist.
The techniques and the style, and
yes.
Right? Because back in the day, it was like style versus style. And
Yeah,
just to
yeah.
see an average, like, he wasn't an athletic guy. He was like a thinner guy going against these huge dudes.
It wasn't Hickson walking in and like his little, shorts where you're like, this is a Greek god walking in. Yes, he's going to win, of course. But even then, I didn't know who was Hickson Gracie. But I was blown away by him and just the way he moved and just how like he took a stand. He owned his space. Just the way he stood. Remember, he was like this everywhere. Just he stomped in, and I was like, but the gi is what had it for me because I was a martial artist in my mind. You know, I had a very traditional, very Japanese, didn't even speak English karate instructor, and it was more like I had to hear him through his movements. He was very technical, and he could see. He's like, "You're real."
Man, I think it would have been a lot different, right, if he wasn't wearing a gi for those early UFCs.
I do. But, you know, when they finally were kind of saying stuff about the gi and then they lost the gi and they did the same thing. The same damage was done. I was like, okay.
But just open up, change. I mean, I think it inspired the whole world, right?
Yes.
I think everybody.
I think people questioned it. There's people who questioned it, and there's still people that are like, well, I'd like to see you do this to me and that to me. And being a female in a jiu-jitsu class when, you know, Marines, military guys walk in and they're like, go roll with Danielle. Danielle, come, roll with this guy. And I'm like, oh, okay. You know, they're giving their life and you feel bad. You know, I catch them in some choke or something and I'm like, ugh. And they get upset and I said, hey, don't get upset. I have a lot of hours on the mats.
What year did you start training, like in San Diego?
I started training in 2005.
Okay. Yeah, so right around the Ultimate Fighter when it started to be on Spike TV maybe, huh?
Yeah, I don't really remember right now, but yeah, you're probably right.
It's around 2005.
Yeah.
But back even in those days, there were like almost no females training jiu-jitsu.
There weren't females.
It was still kind of like Fight Club days.
Yeah. And, you know, you get good off your back because that's where you're basically at every time, especially in the classes that are dominated by males. But so I had to learn how to really give myself and hold myself kind of to work the top game and work on your weaknesses. Jiu-jitsu taught me that looking at your weaknesses and, you know, strengthening your weaknesses could therefore strengthen your strengths. When we were willing to work on our weaknesses, and for me, it was the top game, the advantage position, but it really wasn't. And for a woman, when you really look at self-defense, a man is going to want your things. I always say, give him your things. It's not worth it. They're things. Or he's going to want to get between your legs. So being on the bottom and learning how to fight from that place really empowered me because I had been violated before. I had been obliterated and violated in every way that a female should never be. And so there were a lot of pieces I was picking up that nobody could see. I walked in with a lot of injuries, not to the human eye. And I always think, you know, you never know what somebody's walking through the door with. And it's a sacred space.
I'm just thinking back in those days, right? Like, and you had your, you know, you excelled at sports and things because of, you used it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what were some of the challenges in those days of being a female on the mat doing jiu-jitsu?
Trust.
Compared to like now, maybe, you know, like now it's like, I think there's so many more women training. It's, you know, most places, let's say most places, but a lot of places are a safe place, you know, for women.
I think
I shouldn't say that like generally. I just don't like our place, you know, we work hard to, you know, make it a good place for everybody, you know.
Because that's who you are. Who you are and the essence of you, and also being, you know, your dad. It's like there's an energy about you. Even for me today, I know we met a long time ago. We were both fighting that night, so of course we were in our own little worlds. But walking in, you know, there's always an energy, and I never know what energy I'm going to be met with when I walk into a place, an academy, and there are places it's not the same energy. There are people violating that trust. There are people violating this space. Too many people. And it's getting more and more exposed where people are probably like you are like, I'm sorry, that's unacceptable. But, you know, it does happen. And the trust of that space in particular is a big deal. And I don't think I realized it until it was really broken. And I had to take a stand for not just myself, but for women everywhere. And I've taken a stand multiple times, and I feel like it's becoming less and less. But women are afraid to speak up because they're retaliated against. But this is a space, especially martial arts, where there should be a zero tolerance for it. Somebody's coming in to your school. You never know what they're coming in with, what injuries they have, maybe what they're running from. And they're looking to you for safety.
Safe
You're not a
space, yeah.
savior. You're not the savior. It's like somebody comes in, I want some fish. Let me teach you how to fish. So you can always have fish. Let me give you a pole and teach you how to fish. That's like a place like this, because you're saying, hey, you're capable. You are strong. You have courage. And encouragement is us speaking to the courage in someone else. And you can only do that when you are honest, holding that safe space. Because jiu-jitsu, it got real hot. A lot of people made a lot of money. People were coming here, opening up schools everywhere, people that were not qualified mentally, just because they'd won something, they thought they could open a school or were Brazilian or something. And there's been a lot of violations within martial arts, because martial arts is a sacred thing. It's mind, body, and spirit. And when you have a black belt, people look at you and they just assume, oh, you must be a good person. You own your own business. You just must be a really great person. Yeah. And a black belt is something we either are or we are not, from the inside out.
Yeah, you have to really watch where you go and who the people are. And maybe it doesn't seem right off the bat, but you feel you have a maybe more of an intuition about, now, right, with the things you've gone through. But yeah, it's tricky, right? It's
I was violated. I didn't know better. I didn't know. I was afraid. I was worried, and it was one of the lowest times in my life. I thought I had nothing to worry about. I thought, I don't need to look over my shoulder here or even second guess anything. And it just goes to show that anything can happen to you, and it's how you choose to react to it.
So you had. So how did you react to it? What happened? What you're sharing with me, like, how did you know Chuck Norris?
Well, when that happened, it was all over the internet. What happened to me? I was violated by an instructor, which is an ultimate violation, because there's just this level of trust that I feel. We see it. We see the bowing and all these things that go on.
Respect, yeah.
Yes.
Supposed to be.
Yes, people are looking up to you, looking to you, like coming to you with even things outside of jiu-jitsu, because they just look at you as this trusted space and person. And people are vulnerable when they come in here, and especially, men, yes, too, but women, because, look at the positions, jiu-jitsu. You're sitting on people's faces. People are mounted on top of you, or you lay down and you open your legs and they get in your guard. That's a super vulnerable position for a woman. We all know that. So when you're doing this day in and day out, you start getting used to this, and then somebody takes advantage of that vulnerability regardless, not specifically in that position, but just takes the advantage of the space, the vulnerability, and all your invested time and energy and the connection. People, this becomes their lifestyle. I've seen people not even have a blue belt and they're getting tattooed. And you see everything, and it's just a belonging. They feel like they belong. They feel like they found where they belong. So the vulnerability and then being violated in that way just smashed my heart into pieces, because I was teaching the kids program, and I had to leave. I couldn't stay, and to watch people encourage me to leave, see what was happening, be like, kind of have my back. And then when I inevitably took the stand, people not know how to handle it. It inconvenienced them. And I thought, I'm someone's sister. What if this happened to your daughter? They're like, oh, well, I would do this. And I said, really, I'm someone's daughter. I'm someone's sister. I'm someone's friend. So why am I different? You're tough, Danielle, though. I said, oh, really? So it's okay. I should just take it. And it was devastating for me. I didn't believe in this community anymore. I threw my black belt away. It happened on the day I got my black belt.
Wow.
It took me 15 years to get it. I must have smiled too big. And there was a level of jealousy and obsession, weird thing going on. And it destroyed me. It really, what hurt is to watch some of the people get up and leave. They were like, I don't stand for that. that is unacceptable. But to see a big portion of people who are like, well, and listening maybe to the other side, come on, I didn't do, and whatever what was being said. I heard a lot of it, but I had to turn a cheek and I had to go heal. And I isolated. I cried myself to sleep at night. The physical injuries were very severe. I had to heal from that. That was the easy part. It was the mental and emotional piece. And Chuck Norris and his people had reached out, and I said, no, I quit. I'm done. And they're like, what? They're like, look at all the good you were doing with your black belt. I was talking to Girl Scouts. I was talking at schools about anti-bullying. And I felt like a hypocrite because I had a big bully on my shoulders. I had gone to black belts at the school and asked for help, which was not easy to do, and said, listen, I thought maybe he'll be embarrassed enough in front of his peers, he'll stop. And it just enraged him even more. I didn't know what to do. I literally didn't know how to handle the situation. I tried to have help, and when I didn't get it, I didn't know what to do, and it got worse. And inevitably, I called 911, and everything took place, and left the school. And I never looked back. And I swear, I remember when I fell out, got thrown from the vehicle. I landed in the street, and I heard this voice that just said, "Get up, and don't look back. This is your black belt test." And I was like, "What?" I was really, really broken, and I moved forward. And here I get this call, and I'm in Vegas. I was scared to death to even go out there, and I walk in this enormous ballroom, and there's Chuck Norris sitting on the stage with all his master black belts, and I felt gross putting a gi on. I had a very tough time even putting the gi on my back. I felt like every time I put a gi on after that, I had to do it for someone else or something else. It couldn't be for me. And a lot of scars people couldn't see. And everyone's like, hey, you this or that. And even the fight I remember I met you at, my friends were like, you have to. Just do it. And I brought something so different to that fight. Even the judges were like, no, she's fighting too hard. That's not jiu-jitsu. And I said, it's jiu-jitsu in the street. And the promoter was like, this is what we wanted. But they gave me, even Johnny's like, this is your fight. You got it. Just let the time run out now. Don't move. And it was a different fight. It was like, if this is jiu-jitsu in the street, because guess what? Shit does go down. And I'm not here to scoot around for points. You want me to fight now? Something different's coming out.
It was a fight to win, right?
Yes. They're paying us to go out, and you want to see jiu-jitsu? My jiu-jitsu is going to look a little different than it ever has. And it did. And they did not love it. The promoter loved it.
But the referees or?
Yeah, the referees were like, geez, and I won world championships and won. And, I trained really hard. I wasn't not given anything. I trained very hard. I used the ocean to my advantage. I would do very different level of training than most people. And I treat it like a sport. I was never there to hurt anybody. So to be crushed in this community and have all these spectators and people there and, going back to
was that your first tournament back? Mm-hmm. Okay.
It was.
Oh, wow. I didn't
tough.
know that.
Yeah, it was painful to be there, just even be there. And I was scared to be anywhere around jiu-jitsu people because I was trying to avoid an individual. And I saw old training partners. I saw people's faces there and people that I had instructed even rooting against me because I had said something. Like, you shouldn't have said anything. You did this, you do that. I go, okay, I did. So if that was your sister, would you be telling her that? Not one person could say, yeah. They were like, well, everybody had their excuse. And I realized at that point, this is a community I can't be a part of. I'm not going to put my face and my name on this community any longer. And I walked out, I bowed out. And I didn't quit anything. But that was not, even go to the IBJJF. I did another world championship after and just was treated weird. And, I felt like, gosh, I did nothing but represent that flag on my chest and my back at the highest level possible. And I couldn't represent something like that.
So how did you get back into? Chuck Norris called you. And what was the whole? He got you back in the doing. He's like, listen, change your mindset on what you're doing, why it's important.
Oh, I had no idea what was in store for. I thought I'll go out and teach a little seminar for some karate people. It was the most beautiful group of people. The UFAF, his United Federation, fighting arts. He's done a tremendous job with his people. He's put his heart out there. He's woven his heart into every single belt he's ever given. He is a tremendous human being, martial artist. There's so much tradition in what he does from such a wonderful, beautiful place. And he called me up on stage. I had no idea he was going to give me a new black belt in front of everybody. I was really blindsided by that. And he said, listen, I want to bring more attention and spread jiu-jitsu to the world even more within my federation. And I want to introduce everybody to my female head black belt. I was speechless, and he prayed over me. And of course, that little girl was like, you're not worthy. You're nothing. You're all these things. And I could hear it. And it was like, when you're in a room of that many people praying for you, I knew that there was more purpose, that I wasn't done in this community. So to put my gi on again and again and again was for every little girl out there who's been violated or who had those voices in her head like I had. And I couldn't save them, but I could empower them. I can give them weapons to go out and be strong girls, be strong guys even. There's a lot of people in general who have been violated and fractured in their hearts and their minds. And I've been given so many chances, and that was just one of those moments of like, I could hear, it was bigger than me. And I knew I was supposed to be there. I know I'm supposed to be in a gi anytime I can. And every time I've tried to run, I'll go around a corner and it'll be some instructor who's like, hey, where are you training? And I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, would you mind coming to my class Wednesday night, Tuesday? Are you around? And like, just so, and it was like, gosh, I was like, sure. And if I say yes, I always show up. I don't say yes and not show up. And I would show up. And I would go in and I'd find myself down on the mats, like helping people and wanting to show them a better way to the technique, or even move your hand up a little bit, or this or that. And just, there's so much passion for it. And took me time to get back on the mats. And I gave myself that grace, and it found me. I felt like it called me back.
That's amazing. Wow. That's what how did he know? It was on the internet, you said.
It was on the internet, and different people saw it, and I think different people were talking. I know a Hegan called me, Machado. Richard Norton called me. Like these old school people. And they found me, messaged me, called me, give me a call. I would call. Hello. How are you? I said, I'm okay. I got called by people across the country that said, I have been bullied by those people. So proud of you that you stood up. Like, I can't even begin to tell you the stories. And, you know, I just feel like people are reaching out. I remember flying to Texas, walking into Academy. Same as I walked into yours today. They said, oh my God, what are you doing here? I said, I just came to say thank you and to hug you and say thank you for picking me up when I was down, or even just putting a hand to me during that time. I was very dark and it was very alone, and you don't even know me. So I wanted to come say thank you to your face. They're like, you flew to Texas to say this, and New York. I said, yes. Because it's a big deal. And acknowledgement, being grateful, being in gratitude, the action of being grateful. It's easy to say, yeah, I'm grateful. But to show it, it's really, it's big.
Yeah, for sure. Gets you back. When you give, right, or should give respect, or you're grateful, it helps you, right? Like just the small thing, like, hey, thank you so much for that.
The more we give, the more we get.
And so what were some of the places you kept training? You live in San Diego. You were living in San Diego still at that time. But Higgins up here in LA.
Higgin was up here. He gave me keys to his academy. Okay. He's like, please come in anytime. I said, okay. And I trained at Johnny's, Johnny Faria. Johnny was like, please come. My school is yours. Come anytime. I got called from a lot of schools, but mostly people like, oh, do you want to teach my kids program? They were wanting to like get me to use me. And I thought just things didn't feel right. Certain things didn't feel right. I'm like, hey, thank you so much. I appreciate it. But I'm not ready for that. And I got called to mentor, to teach. I started training Demi Lovato. So there was reasons I put my gi on. And then those reasons I thought, gosh, how long can is this sustainable? Is there ever going to be a day I will put this back on for myself? I don't know. I'll just keep putting it on though. And it was painful. It was tough. There was times I'd be training and something, maybe I would be somewhere and somebody would come in with a Gracie Barra gi. And I would be looking right at it and it would trigger me. It would hurt. And I thought, gosh. Or a picture of me would pop up in my gi.
Yeah.
And I would see this girl and I'd look at her different. Just a lot of things. So I started training with Johnny. I would drive up and train with Hickson. So Hickson's son, the one he lost.
Hodgson.
Used to model with me.
Oh, wow.
We did, yes. And so I knew him, and I used to tell the agency, I'm all, do you know that family? Up in LA, and they were like, this is before jiu-jitsu was as big.
Right.
And they're like, no, what do you mean? I said, that's like the biggest family of athletes, period. And his dad is like this guy, this, and this, and he does this, and they were like,
because you're connected with the surfing cult, the surfing, so you knew all about jiu-jitsu.
Oh,
the
yes.
Gracie family.
Oh yeah, and like when we were younger, Joel Tudor was a pro surfer, and so I was shooting on the North Shore, and I would see Joel, and so our paths have crossed since we were like 15 years old, and so to see him in jiu-jitsu too and do what he's done, I always laugh. I'm like, so you guys realize how skinny and like little this guy was on the beach, and he found jiu-jitsu and he dove all in, but he is a world champion surfer.
Yeah.
He's tremendous.
Yeah.
And so, we were rolling around the beach, and then I started training, and he's like, hey, you training jiu-jitsu? I said, yeah. And we'd be so happy when we'd see each other. And then when I moved to San Diego permanently in about 2004 or 5 that year, I started taking jiu-jitsu immediately and was training full time. I was all in. So it was fun. So yeah, Johnny, Hickson, Hegan, and then random partners, people would be like, come train at my school. I was invited everywhere, especially down in San Diego. And, but I was pretty careful. People that associated with those people and that person in particular that had violated me, I had nothing to say, I just, no, thank you. Thanks anyway. Just didn't want to talk about it. A lot of people wanted to talk about it, and I just wanted to heal. And I wasn't sure if that was going to be a way for me to heal. It was very triggering. It was a part of it that I had to just kind of get through. And little triggers come up. I mean,
it's, the name, they get some names on the, Bomba was one of the names on the, I was like, wow, rest in peace. He's our friend from, passed away this last month, right?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Today.
I'm like, oh my God.
I think even today.
Today, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Bombo's been amazing, especially because that was one of the times I saw like Gracie Barra, and I come into, this random gym in LA.
Yeah.
And he's like, he knew who I was. He said, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry what happened to you. I am not a fan of that. That is not okay with me. And he said, he's like, I'm not going to train with this gi. Because right when I walked in, I was a little bit, and who else committed suicide? Gracie Barra that was up here.
The Orlando Sanchez?
Thank you. Yes. And Orlando had come to Unbreakable and was wanting to do like jiu-jitsu there. So there's a big Gracie Barra flag. So when I walk in, I get asked to be there. I said, is this a Gracie Barra affiliation? Because I'm not training here if it is. I'm not teaching here, and I'm not training here.
I think he OD'd. I guess it's the same, similar, right? But then I'm not sure if he did it on purpose, right? But either way,
I think he did.
Passed away, yeah.
He was pretty open about his depression.
Yeah.
But he was always very supportive of me and very against what happened. So there was quite a few people who stepped up and were like, that is so unbelievably unacceptable. Gracie Barra, the headquarters, hey, what can we do? What do you need? What do you want? Kind of to. And I said,
put it under the rug.
Yeah. I said, I want peace, and I want to make sure that doesn't happen again. So why don't you do that? Nothing is going to take this away. That's unacceptable. So I'll see how you handle it. But Bamba was nothing but incredible and amazing and just beyond talented. It's kind of hard to believe, what's taken place. And it's sad, but this is the mental piece that I work in. And the brain is very powerful. And to understand its capability and our strengths as a human being, outside of an athlete, as a human being, to know that we're the only creatures that can think above our feelings, because neuroscience, thoughts, elicit feelings. Feelings elicit people's behaviors. So it's 1, 2, 3. So if a human being is the only creature that can have the feelings, and the next would be the behavior, we have the capability, or the only creature on the planet that does, to go back to the thoughts, kind of square one and go, okay, yes, I'm feeling depressed, dark, sad, maybe a tendency to not want to be here anymore. However, I can choose my thoughts, which would potentially choose a new action. So it could be, let me call someone. Let me ask for help. Let me take a walk. Let me maybe wait till tomorrow. One more night, one more day. People in that dark pain, they don't look at it like, I get one more day. I have to do this or I have to do that. And that is something that causes a defense and a resistance, and them to maybe flip that switch.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so tragic, It's just like one day to the next. I'd seen him last month. That's what I was thinking.
That's what you said, yeah.
At the Master Worlds. And it was, yeah.
And no different, right?
Yeah. He was like, in Chicago, going back and forth, MSLA.
Yeah. Do you think he felt trapped? Maybe in Chicago, or not sure what to do?
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was friends with him, but not that close, right?
Yeah.
But I know he's a great person. Everybody that I know that they was very close to him.
Super loving person.
Yeah, everybody loves him. He's like a great person.
He connects.
Yeah.
When he's talking to you, he's looking at you, he's hugging you.
We were talking to him last month, and he was like, it was just a great guy. He's a good person.
Yeah. It hurt to see him go. I had a lot of hours on the mats with him, and he was a big piece of bringing me out of that. I feel really, really blessed, appreciative for everything. I mean, he was one of the toughest training partners I've trained with. I laughed just because we were always going at it. He's like, let's put gloves on. I'm like, no.
Doing MMA.
Oh, he is unbelievable. Yeah. He was so phenomenal on the mats. So talented. Unbelievably talented athlete. He made me, there was times I'd train with him or just be there watching him. We'd have a few people come in and train once in a while. And he'd made me feel like, I need it. I could be better. Maybe at my best I could even be better because of Bamba.
That's great. Would you mind sharing a couple stories of him?
Of Bamba?
Yeah.
Well, I remember when I first met Bamba, he was dating Demi Lovato, and he treated her like gold. And I thought, gosh, he's so good to her. And she has an interesting way of treating people. And that was one of the first disagreements Demi and I got into, is how she was treating Bamba. And she's like, you're acting like you're on his side. I says, my brother. And she didn't quite understand this connection yet. Like, that's my brother. You can't treat him like that. And she'd broken up with him on FaceTime, and he was crushed. Bless his heart, crushed. And, he was really proud that she was training jiu-jitsu, and he would kind of be around when we were training, and I'm all, come train in. And she's like, no, you train with him. And she would always want to sick me on people. And it was hysterical because I said, do you think I can beat him? Because I can't. Because some guys would come in, oh, I want to see this and that. And I would, tie him up in pretzels, and Demi thought it was hysterical. But Bamba, she's like, oh, come train with Danielle. That's my instructor. And I said, no, Bamba's more like my instructor. And I said,
but he had, you up, though. He would lift you up.
He always lifted me up. He always had something nice to say. He was the first one to step in and train with, they have a lot of celebrity clients there. Everybody was always wanting to train with Bamba. They felt better when they walked away from him. Bamba, if I had to describe in one word, Bamba was a connector. Bamba could connect to anyone and everyone. And he looks like this, mean dude. He is intimidating. And you look at him and you're like, gosh, this guy's legit. This guy's serious. Bamba trained so hard. And when he went and fought in those MMA fights, we all went to the fights to support him at the Bellator.
Bellator, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was on the Ultimate Fighter. And that's how he came over.
He was incredible. But to see him training, running, his cross training, you would think he was like a professional, like he'd been riding bikes. His running, he really was master cross trainer, mixing in everything, and just so warm though, so kind to everybody, always saying hi. He would get up off the mats to go greet people when they came in the door. He was there 7 days a week, cleaning the mats, so much honor. And when he had his little girl, his little Minnie, I was so excited for him because he had a cat. He loved his cat and always posting his cat and talking about the cat. And that's my kid. And so when he had a real kid, I said, well, this is not a cat. You understand? And he's like, yeah, she's incredible. And so that, I think 2 weeks ago when I saw this, I thought about his little girl because he spent so much time with her. And innately, I thought, God, what can I do for her? Where can I show up in her life to honor him? A lot of things have gone through my mind in the last 2 weeks, working in the space I do, supporting. A lot of times I'm some people's last call. I'm a lot of athletes' last call. And I thought, I wish he just messaged or said something, one thing, just one thing. Even if I had talked to him, I feel like I would have heard it in his voice. Have you played back the last time you saw him? And like maybe your feel of him, is there anything you might have looked back and go, you know what?
It seemed like, he had moved he's in Chicago. He missed LA, but he was out there, I think to be with his daughter and, try to be, be the man, right, that he wants to be. And, but I think he wanted to be in LA, but he was there to be with his family. And yeah, nothing
heavier.
Nothing heavier. No, it was just, he's always so personable, nice.
Yes.
So, and he was getting ready to compete and stuff. So I didn't think too much about it.
He's been working out really hard.
But it was just like, what? Are you kidding me? Like when I saw people started posting about it and some of the chats I'm in, people talking about it, like I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I think everybody's pretty blindsided because he was just.
And he supposedly that night he was at the gym. He closed up the jiu-jitsu gym, and with
in Chicago,
a friend of ours, in Chicago, and then like nobody had a clue.
Yeah, and he had a significant class he had started out here, because I was looking back on some of my messages, just talking to him, kind of looking at like seeing what I could see, like is it me? Did I not see something?
Yeah,
and. He was training on, the weekends at Unbreakable over off of Sunset. And he had a 12:30 class and then an evening class on certain days. He'd given me the whole schedule. He's like, please, when you feel up to it, let's just start going through the motions. And he was wanting me to come in and just get back on the mats. And he was encouraging, always warm, always kind, somebody I trusted, somebody in my mind I knew, like, oh yeah. Maybe, and I was thinking, if I ever competed again, I would just train with Bamba. I would just kind of come in the back of his training schedule and regimen and just do what he's doing because he's intense, he's extreme, and he does it right. He knows how to prepare. But just a trusted space. He was my friend. He was such a good person. He was good to everybody, though.
Yeah.
I never heard him say a negative thing about anybody.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. He wasn't a gossiper. He was just very focused on being present. I know he loved his daughter very much. That was probably, seeing him smile and spend time with her. He posted a lot of videos of her growing and out with the cat. And, I'd always smile. But I think he was very much all in when he was here. And whatever took him was all in to take him because Bamba never would have hurt anybody, especially that little girl.
Yeah.
Something massive had to have been wrong. that none of us could see.
Yeah.
It should wake people up, though, and say, hey, you don't always know. You know, I have a brain injury. People look at me and they think, oh, you must be this. And I'm like,
so can you I just thought when you first came into the gym, you're like, you were telling me what happened to you this last year. You were, could you share the training?
I didn't even know that this could happen. I went into a chiropractic office and he adjusted my neck. Long story short, he tore my carotid artery and damaged my vertebral vessels, the vessels that go from your brain down the back of your neck and kind of the vessels that speak to your respiratory system. For 2 weeks, I had severe headaches. I thought something was wrong. Maybe, am I having menopause? Is my hormones, my body's changing? I found out later I had 5 mini strokes, but my carotid kicked a clot into my brain, and I had a massive stroke to the right side of my brain. So I had an ischemic stroke, which is when your brain is not getting blood because my carotid was bleeding out in my body. And the doctors don't know how I even survived for 2 weeks. I was training, I was surfing, I was running, and they said the left side of my body was so fit that the blood that was going into the left side of my brain was trickling to the right, giving it just enough to survive. I had 5 mini strokes, and then I had the big one when the clot broke from my carotid and shot into my brain, and it shut down the whole entire right side of my brain. I went completely paralyzed on my left side. I dropped. An ambulance picked me up. I passed away in the ambulance. I remember that.
What happened? What do you remember?
So I was trying to tell them, don't let me die, because I'm an only parent of 2 boys. I'm all they have. And I was very scared. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know even what a stroke, I don't think, was at the time. I could feel my heart really racing. And I remember having my hand on, not my left hand, my right hand, because my left hand was paralyzed. I remember grabbing my chest and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. Like, I knew, my body knew it was going to die. All of a sudden, I was in the back of the ambulance, and then I was in ankle deep water in front of a beach of like a body of water, like almost like a bay I'd never seen before. And then to my left, my dog, I just put a dog down in September. She was 17. And I used to have a Rottweiler for a long time too. And the 2 of them were running up the beach to me. And I turned to my left and I saw them. And that's when it dawned on me, because I saw my little one I just put down, and I was like, oh my gosh. And about that time, my son had called my cell phone because he was home from USC on the break waiting at the home for me. And he was calling my phone, and the ambulance lady in the back, one of the paramedics, answered my phone. And he said, where's my mom? Who is this? And he had located my phone. So he got on the freeway and caught the ambulance. And she said, are you in a white truck behind me? And he said, yes. Where's my mom? Where's her car? Did she get in a car accident? And I could hear the woman saying, talk to your mommy. And he was yelling for me. And so to my left were my dogs. And I can tell you, it was so weird. I don't know how I know this. If I knelt down and touched them, I wouldn't have been able to come back. I heard my son, and you know when your kids are calling you, but you're kind of like, okay, I'll be there in a minute. Or there's that mom where you're like, drop what you're doing and you go. And that's the voice he had. He was calling for me. And I think he could hear them working me, and maybe her talking to the other paramedic that they had lost me. And my son was yelling for me, and I could hear him. And it's almost like I saw the dogs, and I remember saying, I'll be right back. And I went to my right. And I don't remember any visual to my right. It was dark. And then I was in the back of the ambulance, and I'm looking back at this woman. And I was trying to tell her, don't let me die. And she looked at me, and she could, and I heard my son go, why is my mom talking like that? What's wrong with her? And the woman said, you've already been there and back. And then she pointed at her eyes. She goes, stay with me. And she was holding my phone, and I could see my son on like his caller ID picture. She goes, talk to your mommy. And she goes, your son's right here. He's behind us. And then I could hear the driver saying, tell him, don't follow us through the lights. And she goes, honey, when there's stoplights, you got to start. Okay. He goes, no, I'm going to stay with my mom. I'll go where my mom goes. And she goes, I'll send you the address where we're going, where we're taking her. And he goes, no, I'm going to stay with you. I'm staying with my mom. and he didn't not back off. And then finally the driver, she said he's flanking the left side. I could hear her talking to the lady in the back. And then there was a fireman who had like maybe the defibrillator or something. And my chest felt really tight. I remember thinking it felt heavy. And I came through the ER doors. He came through, he passed out. He crawled over to me, grabbed onto me. He's like, Mommy, I need you, Mommy. I can't do this without you. And I remember turning to him saying, I'm right here. I'm not leaving you. And then my sister was a surgeon at another hospital. She got to the ER, and she did not let them take me into surgery. She said, give her time. She's strong. And my left hand started to come too. They put me on a medication right away.
So when did you go? You went out in the ambulance?
Yes, I passed in the ambulance.
Okay.
And then they told me
they did they got you back defibrillator and everything.
They got me back. And I got to the ER. They put me in a CT. They said, you've had a stroke. And did you come through a windshield or something the last day or two? Like the amount of damage you have, what did you do? Have you ever had a chiropractic adjustment? And I said, yes. And they said, okay. We found out this guy has no license. He's never had training to be a chiropractor.
Oh my God.
He's a massage therapist, and he opened an office, and he's doing adjustments, charging what a chiropractor would charge. I spent a month in the ICU, and thank God I knew.
This is last year?
This is December.
December, wow.
I got out this January. I spent Christmas Eve, Christmas, New Year's Eve, New Year's. And they would come in sometimes, be like, not sure you're going to make it through the night. I didn't understand. They told me walking, talking, all these things. They weren't sure about anything. And I just stayed calm. I would just tell my body, the body will heal the carotid. And they came in. I had my blood taken on the hour, every hour. And I would just stay calm. I did breath work as much as I could do. I couldn't do a lot because they didn't want a lot of perfusion through my artery. It needed to heal. And I kept asking, when am I going to get out? They said the artery has to pump blood. And I said, okay. And on about day 9 or 10, they're like, they backed it up with I had an MRI every morning at 6:30 in the morning. They backed me up with about 4 more MRIs. And my sister, I go, why are they putting me in MRI so much? She goes, they think you're moving. I go, I'm not moving. And they said her carotid is pumping blood, but every time they took my blood, it would hurt on my right arm. It looked like I'd been in a bar fight. Every time I'd close my eyes and I would speak to the subconscious, which is thousands of muscles in our body. And everybody's like, oh, the body wants to heal itself. Well, I wish I would have brought this little thing for you to experiment. I'm going to bring it to you when I see you next. I was like, the body will heal the carotid. The carotid will pump blood to the brain. The doctor said it's impossible for it to pump blood for any time between 3 and 6 months. Your carotid will not pump blood. You will be here. I go, no, I won't. They came in on day 9. 5 neurodocs walked in with their iPads. And then my sister came from her hospital. She goes, they called me up and said to come over here. She goes, because your MRI, they've done like 5 MRIs and 2 CTs on top of each other. And I finally said, that's enough data. It's too much. And they said, well, we had to make sure. They said her carotid artery is pumping blood. Is a miracle. It's an impossibility medically for this to be happening. And my sister goes, well, my sister's a freak. She's really strong, and she's doing her neuroscience stuff that she does in her breath work. And these doctors didn't believe it. And I said, it's also the grace of God. And if you have a problem with that, you can leave. And I fired my neurodoc. He goes, if you just want the B team, you can go home and die. I said, if you think I'm weak, you come a step closer, I will wrap you up. I'm not weak. And I sent him out. I fired him. And then other neurodocs came in. And then I took this little sinker and string that I made to my neurodoc. It's probably 3 months ago. And I said, did you guys ever figure out how my carotid pumped blood to the brain? She goes, we did not. She goes, as a matter of fact, every MRI you've had, you shouldn't be sitting in front of me walking and talking. She goes, so it's very difficult treating you because you're clinically the way you are is not what your scans are reading. The whole entire right side of your brain is not functioning. I said, okay. And I gave her the sinker and string, and I had her sit there in front of me. And I said, close your eyes and say out loud, in the mind's eye, the sinker will go left to right. And she's sitting there, and then about the 3rd time I gave her a different thing. The sinker was doing it right in front of me and her. She opened her eyes. She was sobbing, crying. She said, how did you know this? I said, we're human beings. There's things you don't know. Are you the best in the world at what you do? She goes, one of the people, yes. I said, yeah, but it doesn't mean you know everything. Yeah. There's still so much to learn. Yes. She was crying. She said, do you know how many lives this could save? She goes, you're the only case that's survived in this country. I said, well, it's by God's grace. He has work for me to do, and I intend on doing it. And there's a lot we don't know. And I said, even when I got a black belt, I looked at that thing and I said, gosh, the more I thought I knew, the more I realized I don't know shit. And I'm just going to always be open to learning.
That's it.
And guess what? You're a top neuro doc and you don't know everything. A lot of you guys told me I wasn't going to live through the night. And all I was doing the whole time, just like the sinker and string, the sinker will do circles. And it does, right? She goes, yes. I go, the tips of your fingers, you have muscles down to every tip of your finger, and your whole body wants to show up. You are a facilitator. We are our healers. We have the power. And it's possible because you told me it was impossible. She goes, I just didn't know. I said, that's okay. God bless you. I said, now you know. And she was crying. And we're stronger than we realize.
Where do you think the strength, your internal strength, your spirit, where do you think it comes from? Do you ever think about that?
I think I'm just blessed. I think God said,
all the stuff you've been through, like, you know, like you choose, like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna win.
Yeah. Winning is general, right? It's because we can lose so much. Like me, I lost my life in December. It was the scariest thing I've ever been through. Every day's been scary. Your right side is your creative, your love, your affection, your serotonin, your dopamine. And like an athlete, we work out, we feel great. I don't have that feeling. However, I know how to capture feel. And I know how to compete. And it's more than a trophy. It's more than anything you could ever imagine. And sometimes it's just trying to stay alive. And I will or I won't. And I knew that. And I knew that no matter what, it's like training for a fight. You can prepare and you can do absolutely everything and get to that fight and do everything perfect and still lose. So I knew there was that chance. They were telling me to my face. My sister was standing in front of me. She was, I never saw my sister cry. She said, she's my younger sister. She's a surgeon. She's brilliant. And she was like, they don't think you're going to make it through the night. I don't know what I'm going to do without you. And should I bring the boys up? I go, don't you dare. I said, listen, those life support machines, why don't you guys bring one in here? I said, Sadie, put me on it and do not pull the plug. I will find my way back. I will. I'm not leaving them. I'm not leaving my boys or you. And she was like, just standing there. And I said, your human will gets tested in between four walls when you're stuck in a bed, especially us athletes. Movement is our way. And to take that away it made me cry. I cried hard. And I was like, fuck, and then I'd pull myself back and I'm like, don't be selfish. You have 2 kids. They need you. Fight for them. Fight for them. And that word took on a whole nother meaning. And I thought, in all my fights, I always stay calm. Even my friends would be like, how do you stay so calm? We'd be driving up to the pyramid or something. They'd be like, how are you so calm? I go, because if I'm not, I'm going to burn my energy before the fight. Mm-hmm. And I would harness it and I'd just get quiet. I didn't listen to music. I listened to my breath. And I would not get in my gi until right before. I wouldn't walk around. I just go sit. And I'd be uncomfortable in my own skin because you're scared as shit. Mm-hmm. I didn't need to hype up. And then the same thing happened in the hospital bed. I wanted to get up and run. They're telling me you're not allowed to get up to go to the bathroom, to brush your teeth. I'm like, please, just stay away. I will find my way. And I just kept trusting that I would, and I kept hearing that I would. I didn't know how. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Except I did know that we're the only creatures that can think greater than our feelings. Alberto, I'd never been more scared in my life. And I thought, that's how I'm feeling. But what's a feel I can actually capture? What can I choose to do? And then I asked the doctor, I go, what needs to happen for me to leave? He goes, what do you mean? I go, anatomically. He goes, your artery is not pumping blood. I said, okay, so what do we got to do? Do you got to go fix it? He goes, no, it's going to heal. It's going to take a very long time. And then it has to pump blood. I said, Okay. So I just started focusing. I closed my eyes and my body. I was like, God, if this is true that our bodies can heal ourselves, then I need my body to heal the carotid just enough, and the carotid will pump blood. And I just was closing my eyes and focusing only on that. Every hour they came and poked my arm for blood, they went between my fingers. I would grab a blanket and I would bite because it would hurt so bad. And I would just bite down, and I was like, as soon as they stuck the needle in, I would go to work. The body will heal the carotid. The carotid will pump blood. The carotid artery will pump blood to my brain. And I would see it go in there. I didn't know how, but I was seeing. And I'm like, okay.
Visualizing and doing the same things you do in sports.
They backed up my MRIs. I've had probably 90 plus MRIs since December. I went to rehab one day. Everybody's in a wheelchair. I couldn't take it. I said, I'm going to learn to swim. And now I go to the ocean every morning without fail. I don't care if it's raining. Somebody, this morning, like, hey, aren't you freezing? Aren't you cold? Isn't it cold? I said, you know what's cold? You know what's freezing? The ICU for a month. Nothing will ever be colder than that.
You know Dr. Joe Dispenza?
Yes.
Seen him?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not enough.
He has the book that's Becoming Supernatural.
Yes.
Have you read that?
I have not read it, but you know what's so crazy? 2 years ago, a friend of mine in Florida was like, I'm going to this Joe Dispenza stuff. You got to look it up. And what are some of your philosophies that you're teaching your athletes? I said, breath is number one, balance, attack. I go fighter, athlete, nurturer, protector, smash together. That's my philosophy. And they were like, really? I go, yeah. He goes, have you ever heard of Joe Dispenza? I go, yeah. And I started looking him up. And then I got to tell you something funny. I was laying in the ICU and I was like, I needed to watch more Joe Dispenza.
Yeah, I think it's exactly because he got hit by, on his bike, right, with a car,
Yes.
broke every part of his back and his body. And
Is that how that happened?
Yeah, and he's like, man, if I'm able to get out of this, I'm gonna give back. I'm gonna give my life to helping others, figure it out, find the way, right? And this guy meditation, and he just talks about, your pineal gland and right, your thoughts. They go out to the universe, but it's your feelings that bring that thought into your reality, right? Your
Is it what I've been kind of talking about, like capturing feel?
Yeah, exactly. And your emotions bring it back to your reality. And so it's like...
Or they can distort it.
Your pineal gland is like shooting out the antenna into the universe, right? Into the quantum field. And then there's all these possibilities that can happen. And then your emotions and your visualization, all the things you're talking about brings it back to your reality.
But there's an element of like our bodies listening and to learn to speak to it and hear it. That's why, like, I always tell athletes, I said, and even me, I'm guilty of this. If we talk to our friends how we spoke to ourselves as an athlete, when we messed up, lost a fight, something, you wouldn't have a friend. That's me. I would not have a friend for how bad I've talked to myself. So it's real because it's listening and hearing. And, I was at some of the baseball teams I've been working with. I have them all sit next to somebody they don't know. I said, sit next to somebody you've never played catch with. They move seats. They sit down. And it's a listening, hearing exercise because people don't realize they are listening, but they're not really hearing somebody. And so I said, for 3 minutes, you're going to talk to your partner, and then nobody else is talking except the person with an object in their hand to remind them, like
connecting to their feelings, which is emotion, right?
Well, if I ask people, if you were sitting here and I said, for 3 minutes, Alberto, you're going to talk to me about what keeps you up at night. That's a pretty deep one. And now, after 3 minutes, I'm going to say stop, and you're going to hand me the object. And for 2 minutes, I'm going to tell you what I hear you saying. And then we're going to switch again, and for 3 minutes, I will talk about what keeps me up at night. And for 2 minutes, you'll tell me what you heard me say. And after that was over, I said, would you guys play harder for that guy that you just talked to? And they were like in tears, these college boys. And I said, why? And they said, well, when he was talking, I was started to talk. I said, exactly, because you were uncomfortable by what he's saying. One of the boys at USC, he said, my mom is a homeless person in the street in Oakland. And it blew the kids down because all these kids at SC, it's not easy to get there. And he said, yeah, I have siblings. He goes, I saw my mom in the street, homeless, and I barely recognized my mom. My mom used to be strong. And that's what keeps me up at night. I want to get to the big leagues to be able to go get my mom off the street. And these boys were beside themselves. I said, would you guys play harder for him? And they were like, yeah, they were sobbing. They were like, and then I said, how's practice been the last 2 weeks? And they said, unbelievable. Like, it just, small things. It doesn't take much to speak to the human. I said, how's that feel, guys, to be heard? And they said, just being heard feels so good. And one of the kids said, I never talked like this before in my life. I said, like what? He goes, I hold everything in. I never talked to people. And his dad's an LA police officer. Amazing family. And you would never think he would say that. And he said, I just never had a conversation like that in my life. I never had somebody talk to me like that. And I've never spoken. I said, how'd it feel? He goes, I feel empowered. It's amazing. And it's listening and hearing, but hearing ourselves saved my life. Having mental tools, having some breath work saved my life. Jiu-jitsu. Understanding technique, being technical, understanding that as big as this situation was, I needed to resort to what I knew. We don't rise to the occasion. We fall to our level of training, always. And
well said.
If I could share that as much as possible, maybe that's why God chose to keep me here. And I've had you see a lot of people in the ICU for the time I was there, and I felt sad leaving. I felt like, why me? Why me? But that's been my life. Like, why am I the winner? Why am I here? Why am I on the cover? Why am I this? But you know what? Why not me? And that's all I should say. Why not me? And I know now I do bring value. I make a difference. I will impact because I'm choosing to, and I don't have to believe the stories and the way I was, whatever I've been through does not define me. It's the choices I make and what I choose. And what I choose is to live in gratitude. And, gratitude, what I learned since I've been healing, I sat down to write. I was dyslexic and I was pissed. And I heard write grateful. I've got a lot of downloads. I can hear a voice very clear. And I heard write down grateful. And I wrote full great. And I threw my pen. I was so mad. I'm like, really, God? You're going to, nah, I can't write now too. That's great. I was pissed. I was feeling bad for myself that day. And I stared at it. And he said, read it out loud. I said, full great. And I sat. It was silent. And I said, full of greatness. And I heard, yes. I said, you built us all full of greatness. I said, yes. And for those of you who recognize that, you are grateful. And I told my athletes too, because they had so much anxiety. That's all I ever hear across the board. Anxiety. I said, what if you showed up not to get something, get the strike, get the win, get the goal, get the score, get the this, get the that? What if I said, hey, I'm going to sign you to a multi-million-dollar contract if you are willing to show up and give today and every day, offensively? And they're like, what do you mean? I said, be all in all the ways you can be always. Every day you're here with that uniform on. Would you be willing to do that? And he goes, yeah. Some of the athletes are like, yeah. I said, why does that seem so light for you? He says, yeah, no big deal. So pure. It's like, I don't know. The anxiety went away when I thought about it like that. I go, but isn't that what you're already doing? We're showing up and we're giving our time, our energy, our skills, our heart. Time and heart are the two most precious things you can ever give anyone or anything. Time and heart. Give breath. Give my balance. Give my skills. Give my presence. Give my focus. Give these things in the space offensively, and I win. Even when I don't win, I win. We win everything. So I'm on a mission to share that and move into some bigger spaces in sports. And I realize I'm just a female and very small in that space, but I work with some of the best athletes, and I do it individually with these athletes. What would happen if I took a giant team and it was seen and exposed and people said, what's happening? And I said, on a bigger platform, I said, hey, we are all built with greatness, and we have a choice to show up and flex our greatness everywhere we go. If we move through the space, if each human move through a space flexing their greatness, even a bad person, if they have a sliver of greatness and they started there, because some people are like, well, what do you mean? What if I'm not great? Oh, you are. Even if it's kindness, go flex it. Say something nice to somebody. Let somebody in your car. Flex your greatness, because that's what we're supposed to do. And maybe that's why God kept me here and made me dyslexic to figure that out.
The TACFIT creator is dyslexic, you know.
The what?
The TACFIT, the guy who created TACFIT, this kind of a movement system that, you know, really has helped me a lot.
Wow.
Yeah, he's dyslexic, and so he did TED Talk on learning styles, and yeah, just how many brilliant geniuses are dyslexic, you know. So when he said I'm dyslexic, and like, it's, who knows what's good and what's bad, right?
I decoded one of the greatest things I probably could decode just from having a moment of dyslexia. Mm-hmm. And then right away getting mad at it, picking on myself, becoming defensive. Mm-hmm. And I felt like this thing, like, hold me down. Like, no, read that. Like, kind of bust through my own stubbornness.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay.
Like pattern recognition, right? Dyslexia is like another, maybe you're great at recognizing patterns, right?
Yes. Especially in people and in things. Mm-hmm. Sports, seeing it, the technique, really, you know, jiu-jitsu taught me how to respect technique. And people used to say, like, if you wanted somebody to describe you, like, as a fighter, what would you want them to say? I'd say, my greatest compliment that could come from anybody in jiu-jitsu would be like, wow, she's really technical. Not strong, not any of the other things, just technique. And the guys I noticed would want to train before their fights or competitions or stuff with me, because they'd be like, you're forcing me. You're so detailed. I'm like, well, I have to be. I'm up against you guys all the time. You guys are way stronger than me. But they would always choose me to train before, because he's like, oh, I'm forced to work on my technique with you, which was always like a compliment. I was like, oh, okay. And I would start looking at that like, wow, this is a compliment. Because I thought, did they just want to try to tap me out before their competition to feel better about themselves? But no, because they weren't able to. My chokes were quicker because they would just grab the collar and muscle it.
You were saying, you know, your offense, all in. I love it. I love that. Just you say it, offense, and I look at it like, you know, you want to, you know, the nerve, right? It's fight or flight or freeze, right? Mm-hmm. So you choose to fight and to move forward, you know.
But from a parasympathetic, calm, cool, collected.
Right.
Digesting the energy.
The right way, right?
Smarter, not harder. All in and always. Always. So all in ALLWAYS. ALWAYS. So in all ways, always.
Controlled beast mode, maybe?
Yeah.
Why not?
Why not? Yes. Savage mode.
Yes. Tell me about your boys. You said a few words downstairs. I want you to say a few words about your boys.
Thank you. So my oldest, he's 21, and I have a 17-year-old. And my oldest was drafted this year and turned it down and said, I want my degree. And he's had
drafted for
baseball. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're both baseball players, and they both do jiu-jitsu, surf, and play baseball, but they've really taken baseball and they're aiming for the top. And I'm doing everything I can to support that. He's finishing up at USC. And then my young one, we were kind of figuring out colleges, and all of a sudden he, you know, I've always said, because everybody, you know, when you have a big brother that's kind of a star athlete, everybody looks at the little brother and goes, well, what do we have here? And my oldest, Bryce, was being scouted out of high school. So we had a lot of scouts in the MLB kind of around and kind of looking at waiting for the little brother and seeing what's going to happen there. And he sprouted 8.5 inches in the last 2 years. And he's now deciding to be a pitcher. So my oldest is a middle infielder, hitter. And then the second one is a pitcher. So he went to the mound, and he's 6'5" and almost 200 pounds, and he's throwing 93 miles an hour. Yeah. He didn't get any opportunities in high school, and this summer he got a couple opportunities, and people were like, my goodness. And I said, well, he's a late bloomer, and I've always said it, and here he comes. So they're both finding their way and playing baseball, and they're my reasons for everything. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm very privileged to be their mom and grateful. You know, it's tough being a single parent, but that's my journey. This is what it is.
Awesome.
My greatest teachers. Kids are our greatest teachers.
Well, thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Congratulations on everything. What a journey, what a story. And I appreciate you spending time and sharing with me and everybody.
Thank you for having me here.
And I hope to see you soon.
Yes.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. What do you have coming up? Are you fighting anytime?
I haven't been competing. I go to coach the students, and my daughter has been wrestling so much, so I go to support her for her tournaments.
Are you nervous at her tournaments?
Oh, it's crazy.
It's hard. It's crazy when your kids are competing.
It's crazy.
Right? Worse than even when you're.
When she wins, I win. When she loses, I lose, and it's like just I don't know because you're not in control, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's nice because I don't have to be the coach. I can just try to be the dad, but of course I know too much to not say anything, Yep. So I'm learning, I'm navigating, right?
How's that environment? It's like parents a lot of times can destroy the environment quick in kids sports, but how is like the female wrestling environment overall?
It can be crazy, right? I mean, I look at other people, I see other stories, I hear other stories, it can be crazy but I just focus on my daughter, and I want her to grow up, to be healthy and happy, and for her to do her best, right?
I think it's amazing when young girls are like just physically strong and putting themselves in those positions and learning, and it's just having been a young female athlete and having it gotten me through so much. I get excited when I see young girls just like, hey.
It's I guess it's the fastest high school sport, female wrestling.
Kat Zingano was just telling me that she was saying she was up for a coaching job for like one of the top female wrestling teams down in San Diego. I think they're Poway, maybe.
Poway, yeah.
Yes. And I said, really? It's a female team? She goes, yes. We just talked about this last week. I was blown away. She goes, oh yeah, one of the top teams is down here, which is so amazing. And also female flag football, which is awesome too. But just that's great. Yeah. Do you just have a daughter?
I have twin girls and a boy.
Oh wow.
So they have an older brother, 1.5 years, but they're just like,
they're fierce.
Yeah, they're fierce.
He's got his hands full. That's amazing.
He's actually doing an exchange program in Brazil,
Oh my gosh.
Have his own space.
Yes.
And grow up a little bit.
Yes.
Different experience, life experience.
Yeah. So you have.
But they're all great kids, amazing kids.
Oh yeah.
Great, good people.
Well, you're a good person.
Thank you. So are you.
Yeah. You've done incredible things in the jiu-jitsu world. I've always heard your name throughout, and it's always just been positive. It's been fierce. Because I was obviously driving up here, and my brain right now with the injury, I don't have a lot of recall all the time, but your name very quick was like, oh yeah, I know who this person is. And then walking in, I was, when I realized we were going to be in an academy and the mats were going to be there, I was starting to feel nervous and kind of just emotional about being in a jiu-jitsu place, walking in like dressed like in a clothes and not workout gear or whatever. And, I felt it in my chest when I walk in, just seeing people training. Immediately I want to like, just normal for me is just bow in on the mats, find the instructor, and I'm just right here with everybody. So it was really nice to be here, and thank you so much for allowing me to feel so welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.